You guys are seeing so much of me. Honestly, this is way earlier than I expected to be posting and creating content because, I'm trying to build something while my wife's been. I didn't realize how much stress it causes to go through that constant fundraising situation. So I'm trying to do that, entertain people, but I got this thing that I'm doing here, right? Like, this is, I don't know if you can see, designing connected content. I'm utilizing my knowledge management and taxonomy ontology design, and I'm building a platform, hopefully, to enable artists to share and collaborate together. And it's something I picked up when I was working at Adobe. Interesting story. Adobe interviewed me to help manage a database system for them about 3 months before I discovered I was autistic, and they called me back for the position about 2 months after. So I was physically incapacitated, but I still improved their productivity by 700%, and the content management volume was like 1100%. My body was 5%. But anyways, while I was there, they got me certified in knowledge management, taxonomy, ontology design, information architecture, and I started diving into the books that I utilized during my time there, just recently in my current development. So I was born in 1978, and when I was like 5 years old, my parents went out, like most parents do, blow off some steam, get some drinks. It was my dad's third wife, though, and when they left, I wrote my name on the side of my dad's car in permanent marker. My S was backwards, that was my signature, so that they wouldn't forget me. And for years, we laughed and was like, why would you do that? Why would you think we would forget you? Well, a couple years back, I finally figured it out. It's because I was passed around like a football until that year, but I was autistic and nobody knew. And I had pattern recognition, so I was like, hey, maybe I should give them a sign that I'm here and they won't forget me. So yeah, that's fun. Good memories. I used to joke about how I was the too geeky for the band geeks and too nerdy for the nerds, and it's pretty much the way it went. I just didn't really get along with my peers, and then had a realization a couple years ago that I graduated when I was 17, which meant I started school when I was 4, which meant I wasn't really in school with my peers. And I often went to school with kids that were grades ahead of me. So I was generally around kids that were 2 or 3 years older than me during my education. And yeah, so it makes sense that I didn't get along with my peers, even if I wasn't autistic. But I had music. I started playing music when I was like 7, and I played it all the way through high school, from trombone to baritone, sang in choir. Interesting story about choir. I'll tell that. In high school, I was in this choir group, men's ensemble. The choir director needed male vocalists, and she got us up there early before class and had us singing some a cappella music. Eventually, we started transposing music on our own and singing. Called ourselves Spectrum. Nobody knew I was autistic, huh? Interesting. My grandparents were wonderful. Gave me my first car. Well, it wasn't my first car, but they gave me a car for my graduation. It was just a Chevy Cavalier. I graduated in 1996. And, nobody told me I had to check the oil or change it or add to it. So one day it stopped running right, and I pulled into my grandparents, and my grandfather's like, pop the hood. It was like really hot. I opened it, and it's glowing orange and red, orangish red, and it was Yeah, that's when I learned that you're supposed to check the oil in your car. If you didn't know, there's an oil place and you gotta check it. I always got in trouble for misuse of technology, making technology do things it's not supposed to. Um, I couldn't help it. I can talk to technology. Other people just can't understand that. Hey, kitty. This is Harlequins. Say hello. Well, she won't stand. Anyways, yeah. So I can talk to technology. I actually landed my interview with Adobe with a bio that I sent them that I think the heading said I was human to technology translator or human to computer translator, which has pretty much been my journey for most people that have known me can definitely account for that. My grandma used to get those magazines from Best Buy, the Future Tech magazines, and I would go over to her house and she would just ask me questions about things that I didn't know about because I didn't read that. I don't really read because it hurts my eyes and my brain. Um, but one day she was talking about the Roku before anybody else knew about it. She's like, "What do you know about this Roku thing?" And I was like, "What are you talking about?" And of course, she got me interested, and she ended up buying one so that I could hook it up to her television so she could use it just because it interested her and she wanted to have one. Um, there was a lot of things that happened that way. She would just ask me about a piece of technology, and if I even explained it slightly in a way that she understood, she would buy it, assuming that I could help her understand it the rest of the way. And she was right in that assumption. There's a dark side to almost every story in between, at least. I'm going to try to stay away from that stuff during this little bit of my storytelling, because I think I've shown a lot of the darkness recently. But there's just so much. There's so many incremental steps of the journey that brought us here that, I mean, I'm not complaining. I wouldn't change how I understand myself and the world. The things that I can see that are painful sometimes, I think about would it be nice to be ignorant again? No, no. I'm okay with the way that things went for me. I wish it had been different for others. I remember how many times, I don't know how many times, teachers tell me it would be impossible. How'd you know the answer? I don't, I don't know. You showed it to me. I answered the question. What's the problem? You must have cheated. I was like, what did I write it in the back of my eyelids? How would I have known what you were going to ask me today? Well, it turns out, I've got this like quantum processor of a brain, so it's possible that maybe one of the billion scenarios that I Doctor Strange through my brain the night before when I should have been sleeping because I was so stressed about having to interact with other human beings, specifically teachers, members of authority when I was a child. It was so stressful. So I didn't sleep. I had to plan out every conversation with every individual and every possible potential reaction that they would expect from me so that I could be ready. Unfortunately, I failed that test most of the time. Other tests, so I started having this really bad pain in my back and my neck, tingling down my extremities. I don't even remember the year at this point, but I do know it took 7 years before a doctor actually had the right scan done and they found the ruptured disc that was causing all the pain. The 13 previous doctors were convinced that it was in my head and had me spend hours trying to convince myself that it was in my head. Um, yeah, that was a fun experience, but the bright side of that is I had the disc removed, and after that, during that period of time, I was working in retail pharmacy and going to college. Made dean's list while I was on opiates, and I had my band just getting up and running again. And then I met my wife right after surgery. Granted, we were just coworkers for a good 2 years before we ever even dated, but we got to know each other really well, and we have very similar spectrums of challenges. Uh, so we bonded pretty easily. I'm very grateful for the things that she's opened my mind to. Her activism. I'm not even gonna jump into the thing I was gonna say right now because it's worth the whole minute for itself. But her activism has opened my eyes to so many things that I didn't realize they were blind to. And I think a lot more human beings need to open their eyes because this treating each other like we're garbage or disposable or like we have to exploit one another, it doesn't have to be this way. In 2021, I discovered that I'm autistic at the age of 43. In 2022, I discovered I had an autistic daughter who was born in 2001, who was orphaned in 2002. Yes. And when she reached out to me because of my wife's beautiful artwork and advocacy for the pride community and trans rights, my daughter didn't need to hear her father say her dead name. And that's something I'm very, very, very proud of, because I can't say that that would have happened without my partner in my life. I was open-minded and I wasn't a hateful person, don't get me wrong, but there were things that I didn't understand that I do now, or that I'm trying better to. 9 years ago, my wife's mom passed away. I knew how to handle the paperwork part of it because my grandfather had passed away recently, and I watched the family come together and do all those things. So I knew who you had to go to and sign papers with and whatnot. And then we sat in Autistic Freeze together and grieved until we lost the home that her mom and her picked out. And we put all of her mom's stuff in storage. It's still in storage today because I don't communicate well enough to get the help that we need, but I communicate well enough to be exploited and make people money until they don't make money. What can you do? Anytime I needed to learn a new skill, I just did. When I met my wife and she got really into modeling, I don't know how long before we met, but she was into modeling when we met, and I went with her on a shoot or met her after a shoot or something, but some dude was being really creepy to her or a friend of hers, and I didn't like it. So I bought a camera, read up on lighting settings and whatnot. We started collaborating together artistically, and I must have done okay because I ended up with a job actually taking photos for it was just one of those school picture day and doing like athletic events and stuff, but it was fun. It paid the bills for a while. I worked for Abercrombie and Fitch on 2 occasions. I worked with them when they were just a single bay in the shipping department at Victoria's Secret, and then again when they got their own warehouse. And I started as a seasonal employee. They were like, we don't hire anybody for 90 days. 2 weeks in, I'm like, that ain't gonna work for me. You're gonna need to give me a position. I showed you my productivity already. They agreed. So I got a full-time position right away. And then I also created a new department for their second shift. And then they created a vendor compliance department on second shift, and they moved me to it. And I was basically just walking around fixing people's problems all night. It was quite interesting. But I did so much better than the crew of 6 that they had on first shift that they had me redo the whole program. It was fun. I actually left Abercrombie because they hired somebody to do the job that I was doing and wanted me to train him. because he had a degree. I mean, he had a 2-year degree. Of course, he's more qualified. Yeah. Anyways, there's this one time I ended up doing masonry work, which is concrete blocks, laying uh, mortar between bricks and laying the block down. But this was blocks, the large gray ones, and got into lunchtime, and me and my friend went out to sit in the car and smoke some marijuana because, I mean, these guys were wearing us the hell out. And we didn't have any. The boss comes up and gives us some. He's like, you guys are doing really good for not joining in on the other thing. Turns out it was just a regular thing among a lot of construction workers, which I learned that on most jobs, that I was just able to keep up with people that were doing narcotics to do their jobs, just with my natural productivity. Sorry about the bell curve. Right after we lost the house, we moved into my drummer's basement. That was a hellacious experience. It was one of the first times I'd had a full-on meltdown. Mr. Bean's trying to be crazy over here. Say hello, Beans. Mal? And threw myself down some stairs. Yeah, that's some scary shit. But we moved into a place along the Ohio River. It was kind of nice. But then the first job I got, they're like, well, you're too qualified for just a job, so how about assistant manager? Okay. And as soon as I got done with training, they're like, well, okay, here, you do this, do this, do this. I was like, wait a minute, did you just tell me to write in numbers? Those are temperatures. They're like, yeah, well, the thermostats don't work. The seals are broken. So you just got to write this because it's not allowed to go below that. There's this one time I built a database system for a guy that had his own washing, like window washing for houses and offices company. And he was making his wife do all of the work by hand, manually. No, like, no spreadsheets, no, it was, anyways, I was like, look, dude, I could wash windows and learn how to climb on a ladder, even though I'm scared of heights, like really, really fucking scared of heights. Like, or I could build you a database system and make your wife so much, like, she won't have to be your work bitch, and she can just be your wife, because she wouldn't get paid for it. And so I did it. It took me 2 weeks. And he decided it didn't need paid because I did it so fast that it must not have I must not have did any work. I can't count how many times that has happened because I'm that fast. Don't pay me. So then, after the contract with Adobe was going so well, things started shifting to AI in every region of the world, and all of a sudden it was like, tell us the value you provide. Tell us what value you provide. Would you please chart out the value you provide? And I understand they got spreadsheets to judge things by. Everybody does that, but I thought my work spoke for itself. And then, they told me I did a good job, um, offered me recommendations, gave me a little severance when the contract was up. But they needed a web designer, and a web designer I had not done. I'd never done web design at that point. And I kind of had my autistic freeze and had this feeling of grief, and I didn't move for like 60 days. I think I played Jurassic World on PlayStation nonstop. I was just building squares, or not squares, but the hexagons, hexagons, trying to make perfect shapes, just to reset my brain, and nothing was working. And then we ended up getting evicted, and we spent 101 days homeless in 2024. So I thought it was a rescue when we got the offer to come here. I didn't know that we were being human trafficked, and the dude intended to have me murdered. So like he played psychological games with us all year long, whether it was intentional or not. It was horrible. Like, anyways, I won't get into it. I've never seen that level of incompetence in another human being. But then one day it escalated to where he felt the need to call the police. Turns out he's a registered violent criminal, and that warranted eight eight cruisers and 12 cops showed up here. And he thought, I'd lose my shit and cops take me out. He'd have my wife stuck here because she's also disabled, but she'd have to be his caretaker because our disabled children are also here. What a freaking weird story to have to share. But anyways, that's why we're here. That's why I'm asking for your help with my electric bill. So my kitties. And I started building a cognitive loom. My idea was I'd take the raw data I got from every corporation that has my data. You can do that, by the way, request your data. And I would feed it into a system that could analyze it and produce the statistics and analysis back to me so that I could kind of like quantum analyze myself from the perspectives of all these different platforms based on whatever reasons that they kept data, whether it's Facebook from posts and messages or my blogs, because I kept blogs, like 14 different blogs over 10 years. And I've been writing music most of my life. I've recorded quite a bit of music. So reanalyzing my lyrics through this new understanding has been rewarding, and I thought I could do it. So I thought I could do it programmatically, and that led to creating a quantum pagan framework, a concept of having an individual process be all it is. Initially, I thought it was going to be an AI integrated project, and it ended up just being a Python pure system. And then I got kind of sidetracked trying to make a website because I'm not a web developer. But I had a lot of fun and actually learned how to do game mechanics along the way, just so I could try to communicate my message that I'm here and I want to share my story and my art, my creative things that I've done and the things that I want to do, and help other people if they got things they want to learn. I would love to help unlock that, whatever that barrier is for others, because that's something that I've always been able to do. I don't want to charge for it. And everything then started tying together. I started creating a taxonomy and ontology design for all the things that I'm kind of interconnecting the data systems, because that's what everybody's missing with AI right now, is that it doesn't matter how much you build or how fast you process, it's still going to mirror whatever you already know. And most people don't know what they know. And I learned that in knowledge management certification. I mean, you kind of already know that, but they really hammer on that. Most companies, most individuals, you don't know what you know. So I built a system that allows me to just dump everything in a folder called landfill and push a button, and it processes everything and it analyzes it and it categorizes it. Right now I'm working on extracting code segments from that process. Why would I want to extract code from this process? Well, because I already know that I can extract text and get context out of segments of text because I'm a poet, I'm a writer. That's what I've always done, is prose and metaphors, visualization, things with words, so that I can help express the things that no matter what amount of words I use, it takes tone for people to understand my emotions properly. I don't know. So I'm very grateful I've had music in my life. It's been a great, great, I don't want to say crutch, strength, partner. That and cats. I've had cats in my life since I was 7 years old. I am a cat. Meow. So if any of this has resonated with anybody, and God, I hope it has, you know, can be pretty freaking entertaining. I got kitties. Kitties. And, you know, I spend a lot of time petting and grooming and talking and playing. So, like, we could share these things. But right now, what I want to see is I want my wife to not be stressed out because she has to fundraise. Um, the world is on fire right now. The people that she advocates for, it's very important that she's able to put her energy into that. And I know you've got to agree with me. And I would really love to eat something other than the things we've been stuck with. You know, when I discovered I was autistic, the first thing I did was like a mass email to my family. The response was not what I expected. Uh, First was, please don't do that. Don't bother everyone. The second response was, nah. Interesting thing though is my stepmom, who doesn't think it's she works with autistic kids in schools. The girl I dated in high school doesn't believe that I'm autistic. She has a PhD in autism studies in children. The world doesn't know, man. My daughter's got a formal diagnosis. She got it years before she found me. We're almost identical. You know, the last time I talked to my grandmother, she was the only one in the family that ever, I shouldn't say only one. My cousin Don did make a lot of effort to always make me feel accepted, welcome. But grandma was the only one that was always on point for me. And our last conversation, she basically told me I needed to give up on the family because they were never going to accept me. I haven't talked to her since. Anyways, I'm not going to get sad. We're not talking the darkness right now. We're getting into the good stuff. Um, you know, music. If you got it in your life, keep it there. I let it go for too long. This will be the last video I post today. I just want my wife to be able to stop crying. Or rather, I want to know that it's not over me and my inability to prove to the world I'm valuable. I know I'm skilled. Everyone I've ever worked with knows I'm skilled. But my disability, I can't stop being autistic. I just don't have that ability. Munchkin, we're really hopeful that when we wake up, somebody's donated money and we've got food for you and the electric bill paid.